Hey there. It's me, Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access, link in the comment, thanks. In early November I was notified that both of the last two pictures that I had made, The Moons of Cappacia and Open Spaces, Lost Loves, were being released the week before Thanksgiving, in time for the holiday season, and both movie companies wanted me to do a promo tour. I welcomed the break, and Jennifer had managed to get them to agree on a combined tour. I notified Mr. Wilkes of the dates that I would be away so that he could plan the shooting schedule. He appeared a little miffed, but it had been agreed to when I had signed to do the picture, so he couldn't very well refuse. Besides, we were ahead of schedule, and he knew that I'd also be talking about the new picture while being interviewed. Jennifer had arranged it so that I'd be in LA at Thanksgiving. Both premieres were being held there on the weekend before the holiday. Jennifer flew in to join me on the tour, and to handle things for me. Since I was already in Atlanta, we began by giving interviews there, then flew up to New York for 2 more days of interviews, beginning with the very early morning news shows on Monday. Before I left Atlanta, I made arrangements for Mrs. McGuire to fly out to LA for the 2 weeks. After New York, we went to Chicago for 2 days of interviews. I made a side trip, after the first day, to have my fitting for the 2 gowns that Barbara had prepared for me for the premieres. She was already working on the design for the one for the new movie, which would probably premiere around April in Atlanta. Being in the theater again was like coming home, even more than when I stopped at the old house to check on things. I spent about an hour with Marge and Barbara after the fitting was done and the gowns were ready to take with me. I learned that Mr. Tucker had indeed gone, but Barbara was able to give me his address in New York. I wished that I had had it when I'd been there a few days earlier. I caught the commuter flight back to Chicago after my visit and went to bed early because I would be on 2 early morning shows in Chicago the next day. I arrived at the condo late on Thursday evening, exhausted from the intense interview schedule so far, and fell into bed. Neither Mom nor Mrs. McGuire was there, so I assumed that they were up at the new house. Mom and Mrs. McGuire came down to the condo on Friday morning and Mom took me to the salon so that I could get my hair done. My car was up at the new house and we used the new Saturn that she had recently bought. She had also purchased a minivan for the estate. The premiere for The Moons of Cappacia was held on Friday evening. I would have loved to go with Oliver, but that would have created too much talk, so I went with another of Mr. Daniels' clients, Owen Vekram. Owen was a minor supporting player in a television sitcom and could use the exposure. We hadn't met until he came to the condo to pick me up. Owen, despite being older than me by about 10 years, was very nervous. We spent a few minutes talking before we left and I tried to calm him down. By the time that we reached the theater, he seemed more self-assured. Like my previous premieres, I was questioned on my way in and again on the way out. As the star of the picture, I wasn't dismissed in favor of anyone else as I had been in the past. The premiere went well and everyone seemed to enjoy the movie. I was absolutely blown away by the special effects that had been interposed into the movie, making it appear that I really had been in outer space. During the shooting, we had to pretend that certain things were happening, although we couldn't see anything, and we had to react to imaginary things that weren't on the set. The post-production people had now inserted them into the scenes. It was an exciting movie to watch and I could feel the excitement in the theater. The movie left you breathless from beginning to end. Afterwards, we were invited to a party to celebrate the release of the picture. I really didn't want to go, but I knew that it was part of the obligation of being the star. I only stayed for 2 hours, though. Mr. Landoy's pet name for me had stuck with the people from the movie and spread, because everyone kept referring to me as Princess while I was there. I left Owen at the front door to the condo with just a handshake and my thanks for being my escort for the evening. He didn't try to kiss me and I didn't offer. It had been just a business date, after all. On Saturday I attended the premiere of Open Spaces, Lost Loves. This time my escort was Alec Carsey from the movie. He had broken up with his former girlfriend and needed a date for the premiere also. It worked out well for me because now the press would understand that there wasn't anyone steady in my life. When we arrived at the premiere, Jennifer Larita was being interviewed. As we approached, the interviewer cut short the interview to turn to us. I knew how Jennifer felt, but we hadn't arrived there at that time intentionally, and Alec was the male lead, after all. Despite having just seen me with someone else the night before, some members of the press asked if Alec and I were involved. I smiled, shook my head, and said that we were just good friends. The premiere of Open Spaces, Lost Loves went well also. The editors had done a great job and the story was very enjoyable. I received third billing, quite an improvement since the first movie, where I had been listed last in the opening credits. Of course, my part was substantially larger than in the first movie. After the premiere, we attended the party being hosted by Mr. Tinker at his house. I was extremely tired, but stayed for a little over 2 hours. Alec wanted to stay, so I went home and sent the limo back for his use. On Sunday, Mom, Mrs. McGuire, and I went up to the new house. It was my first chance to see what was going on, and my first thought was that an earthquake had hit the house. I wandered from room to room looking at the wreckage that used to be a lovely home. Now don't pay any attention to the open walls, Mom said. They had to do that to remove the old pipes and install the new plumbing, the new electric service and wire harnesses, the central vacuum pipes, and the ductwork for the central AC. Once they're done, you'll never even realize that the walls had been opened. I hope so, because right now it looks like those old movie scenes of London during the latter part of World War II. They're actually almost ready to begin closing the walls up. By the time that you get done in Atlanta, the house will look great. It'll be done for Christmas? No, but the walls should be closed back up and painted. It'll be a few more months before all the work is done. The bedrooms and bathrooms may not be finished until sometime in January, but the kitchen should be done in a couple of weeks. I've been pushing them to get that done early. The swimming pools will take the longest. I've ordered new marble tiles for the indoor pool, but they don't expect it to come in from Italy until February. What about the security system? The wiring has all been done. The sensors and outdoor cameras will be installed next month. The front gate is all set, but we leave it open during the day because there are so many workmen coming and going. I close it at night after they leave. Each of our cars has a controller, with a button mounted in the dash, and if you come in a different car, you can key in a code on the keypad on either side of the gate to open it. The codes can be easily changed in the computer if somebody learns them. Whenever the gate opens, a doorbell-like noise sounds downstairs to alert you that someone is entering, or exiting, the grounds. We toured the upstairs and I saw that most of the bathrooms were in various states of completion. The bathroom in my bedroom was almost completely finished. There was a new, enormous, oval tub, in addition to a shower that was large enough to hold 4 people. It had 2 shower heads on opposing sides. Along one wall was a long marble countertop with 2 sinks, and a mirror that covered the entire wall. My bedroom walls were already back together and were awaiting painting. The room would be ready for use in a couple of weeks. Has the furniture that we sent out been finished yet? Most of it has. The furniture from your bedroom turned out fantastic. Wait until you see it. They'll deliver it as soon as the room is ready. We just have to get you a new mattress, bedclothes, curtains, and the like. Come see the kitchen. The kitchen was starting to resemble something that you see in those magazines that showcase renovations. Everything in it was new and beautiful. Except for the floor and some trim work, the room was done. Foot square marble slabs were stacked next to one wall, ready to be cemented down. Mrs. McGuire was cutting up vegetables at one of the counters. "What do you think of the house, Mrs. McGuire?" "I think that it's going to be grander than any home that I've ever seen. The kitchen is a thing of beauty. I feel guilty every time I make a mess when I'm cooking, but these marble counters clean up so easy that the feeling doesn't last for long." I smiled at her comments and said, "Where are we having Thanksgiving dinner, Mom?" "At the condo. We're not really set up here yet, even though Mrs. McGuire and I have been staying here and she's been making simple meals for us. The kitchen's almost complete. Why don't we eat up here? It doesn't matter that the floor's not down. Actually, it might be. The tile people are supposed to start it on Monday. It should be laid even if it's not grouted on Thursday. Then all we have to do is bring up the proper cooking utensils." "No, we don't. We've already stocked all the cabinets so that we could leave everything in the condo." When I said that we weren't set up, I meant that we don't have a dining room set up. Mrs. McGuire and I have been eating our meals on snack tables on the patio. That's fine with me. Or we could clear off the big dining room table that we moved into the ballroom. It's not there. I sent it out to be refinished. It won't be ready for a couple of weeks. Did you call the Goodwill yet to pick up the stuff in the garages? No. Then let's bring up that old work table that was in the kitchen. I know that it's yucky, but we'll put a big tablecloth over it." "Okay, let's go look at it." Mom and I went out to the garage while Mrs. McGuire worked on making lunch. We cleared the pile of stuff off the table and looked at it. It was one of those ugly, metal, brown and yellow painted Art Deco tables from the 30s or 40s that had pull-out extensions on both sides. It was dented and chipped in several places, but the wooden legs, painted with a dark brown paint that had dripped and run, were enough study, and it would serve us for a few meals until we got the other tables back. We carried it to the patio and then brought the half-dozen chairs that went with it. We washed them all down and put a tablecloth on the table so we could eat lunch out there. "I'd like to invite Sharon to Thanksgiving dinner," I said, excited at the prospect of showing her the new house. "That would be nice. I haven't seen her and the babies since the baptism. I don't know if Roy will be around to come or not, but there may be one more. Plenty of room for one more in this house." We returned to the condo at dinner time. I drove my car back so that I'd have it available and parked it in one of the free spaces since Mom would park in our assigned spot. I had appointments to do half a dozen promo interviews over the next 2 days and Jennifer, my publicist, would meet me downtown in the morning. Both of the new movies got good reviews and I was riding really high as I drove past movie theaters and saw both listed on the marquees. I completed my interviews on Tuesday, leaving me 4 days off before I had to return to Atlanta. I picked up Sharon and the babies on Thursday morning and drove them to the new house. Mom and Mrs. McGuire had stayed there overnight in order to work on the meal and get the turkey in the oven early. The workmen had cemented the thick marble tiles down in the kitchen and, although they weren't grouted, the kitchen had an almost a finished look to it, helping to make up for the torn-apart look of the rest of the downstairs. Sharon loved the house, despite the mess, but I had known that she would. Carol and Samantha arrived just before 11 o'clock. I was surprised to see Sam as I had expected that she would have gone home over the holiday weekend. She told me that her folks had gone to Wyoming for Thanksgiving but she didn't feel like making the long trip to her aunt's house. We sat out on the patio waiting for dinner to finish cooking. I brought the reviews with me that appeared in the paper. "Mom said that you hadn't seen them," Carol said. "Thanks, I haven't actually read them, but I heard that they were good. One of the interviewers on a radio talk show told me about them. That doesn't compare to actually reading them, or hearing them read word for word when they're this good." Listen to what they wrote about you in the entertainment section following the premiere of Open Spaces, Lost Loves. The highlight of the movie was the performance of Crystal Ramsey. Although officially only listed as a supporting actress, her riveting presence carried the movie. Reprising her role as Wendy Stone in this second part of the trilogy, Miss Ramsey displayed the acting skills that earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress at this year's ceremony. The Academy should sit up and take notice of this wonderful young actress and correct the mistake that it made in March when it passed her by. Isn't that great? Samantha said. Yes, it's nice. What did they say about the other movie? Carol turned the page on the newspaper. This one is even better. Here it is. Yada, 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 here we go. I went to this movie with very low expectations. I had seen Miss Ramsey as a winsome, Victorian maiden in Under the Scarlet Maple, a shy, almost fearful, recluse in A Promise of Spring, a foxy, young, troublemaker in Open Spaces, Closed Hearts, and a wonderful, ditzy blonde tour guide in A Water or Tequila, Señorita. And loved every one of her performances. But as the captain of a starship? No way, I told myself. The movie begins at the graduation ceremony of the Northern Hemisphere Space Academy. Miss Ramsey graduates as a young ensign and receives her first assignment to a ship bound to the farthest reaches of explored space. Several months out of spaceport, the ship suffers a catastrophic power problem and explodes just after all hands abandon ship. Miss Ramsey's escape pod drifts through space until a ship picks her up. The ship is a freighter, and her rescuers are actually in danger themselves from space pirates. After an initial attack kills the captain, the second in command, who is quite young and ill-prepared to fight off attacks by pirates, asks Miss Ramsey's character to take over command because of her military training. Miss Ramsey's character actually seemed to grow and mature during the movie as she deftly commands the ship and earns the respect and loyalty of the crew. By the end of the movie, I felt myself cheering out loud, along with the other patrons, for Miss Ramsey's character. I'm happy to say that my initial expectations were totally wrong. There's no denying that Miss Ramsey is Captain Janetta Carver, and I can't think of anyone who could have handled the part better. Miss Ramsey has now proven herself to be a triple threat. She can handle comedy, drama, and action-adventure with equal skill. It almost seems that all one needs to see is Miss Ramsey's name on a picture to know that they will enjoy a quality performance. The second in command was played by yada, 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 Carol said. Another great review, sis. Wonderful reviews, Crystal, Sharon said. I'm still waiting for your first bomb. Well, I like that. Thank you very much, I said, feigning indignation. Sharon laughed. You know what I mean. I don't hope that you bomb, but every actor or actress has a real stinker from time to time. It doesn't even mean that they gave a poor performance. It might be a weak script or poorly timed release of the movie. It might be a bad director or even poor editing. The point is that no actor or actress is immune. It's just a matter of time. Hopefully, you get enough good ones behind you to weather the bad. I'd say that Crystal has passed that point now, Samantha said. She's established herself. I agree, Carol said. A bad movie or two can't erase all the successes that she's had. This is usually about the point where an actor or actress begins to take chances, Sharon said. They start to believe their own press and think that they can make any movie a success. That's when they fall on their face. I've been content to let Mr. Daniels pick the scripts. He's done great by me so far. I don't see any reason to change that. But now you'll start having people try to circumvent that and send you scripts directly in the hopes that they can convince you to override his veto. You've started to make contact with some of those people by attending the parties after the premieres. It won't be long now before they start approaching you directly if he's turned them down. Especially once you have this palace finished, and people know where to find you. I thought about what Sharon had said. I wondered if I would reach a point where I would begin to believe that I knew better than Mr. Daniels. Mom called out from the kitchen that the turkey was almost done and that we should set the table, so we cleared away the newspapers and passed the plates and silverware around. The babies were sleeping in their car carriers, having just been fed within the past hour. Carol went in to see if she could help out with anything but promptly returned. Mrs. McGuire has everything well in hand and shooed me out of the kitchen, she explained. 10 minutes later Mom called to us to help carry the things out, so we all made a couple of trips and loaded up the table with serving dishes full of steaming food. Mom came out last, carrying the turkey. "Where's Mrs. McGuire?" I asked. "In the kitchen. I invited her, but she doesn't think that it's appropriate." I got up and went into the kitchen. "Mrs. McGuire, today is the day that we all let our hair down and give thanks for what we have been blessed with. I know that this is an American holiday, but I would consider it a favor if you would join us in our celebration and our meal." "Oh, I couldn't, Mississippi. I'm just the hired help." "You're much more than that. Come out, please." "Well, if you insist." "I do." 5 minutes later we were all enjoying the meal and praising Mom's and Mrs. McGuire's culinary skills. Except for the Thanksgiving meal that we'd had in Mexico, this was the first time that we enjoyed one outside in the backyard, and there was little doubt that the food was better than what we had enjoyed last year in Mexico. It did seem strange though, not to have Aunt Jessica at the meal. Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access. Link in the comment, thanks.